Squatters. People who occupy a space rent-free and off-record, sometimes in an abandoned location, and sometimes in a place that is already occupied, unbeknownst to those who already live there. Sometimes these people go unnoticed completely for years. Sometimes they are caught. But most of the time, these cases are harmless, and the squatters are simply hiding away to keep themselves alive. What if they weren't, though? What if the squatter was involved in a terrible act and was hiding himself in your home to escape the repercussions of said act? Enter Hollis Coogan, a young man who seems to be a bit unstable and hallucinating, and from what Anthony tells us, is responsible for the disappearance of his little brother Jordan.
Hello. I am Dr. Reeds, and what I find odd is that Hollis chose Anthony's house in the first place.
And why this obsession with the rain barrel?
How do I open you? How do I close you? Is he talking about the rain barrel here? Or is it something a little more symbolic?
These seem to be reoccurring themes. The pool, someone being killed, and the neighbor.
Notice anything odd in that scene?
Pool filter tubing.
But was this Hollis?
Anthony assumes so and contacts a solution center that has him perform an odd task as payment. Hollis steals a photo from Anthony's home and replaces it with another one of the two together. Did they know each other before all this? Why didn't Anthony remember? Unfortunately, the task mentioned before causes Anthony to be put into a bad position, as it frames him for several disappearances in the area. His contact, a liaison for the one Anthony hired, who himself was also listed under an alias as Dr. Tanner, takes Anthony to a nearby storage facility that Hollis had also been caught obsessing over.
But why?
While in hiding, Anthony and Hollis begin communication through code. The two meet up and begin discussing the true intentions of this project. Anthony mentions how Jordan wasn't harmed by any of this, and how they were both going to be remembered for the lessons taught here. The two had been working together all along. The head chopping video was faked by Hollis. Anthony had ordered Hollis to stay at Dr. Tanner's apartment, and Anthony had even helped Hollis to hide within his home.
Because as we see in the scene, with the head chopping scene, we find out that it was actually the liaison helping Hollis. And if you look at the two together, you can really tell, but he actually admits it. But again, why? And what were the two trying to prove? And how did Jordan always want this?
The question is expanded further as we see the two scattering ashes in the final episode.
Alright, so my gathered thoughts, after looking through all of the footage, after going through all the puzzles, and after my initial theory, I believe Anthony's parents were on drugs. And when I say they were on drugs, I don't specifically mean they were on illegal drugs. I believe that they had a doctor who was a little bit careless with the prescribing of a antidepressant.
As all we see is Anthony's mother in this series. It could be that the father died, and this is why his mother was on the pills in the first place.
And they became kind of unresponsive to things. They started forgetting things, kind of just autopiloting through life and forgetting the moments. And we see that referenced in Anthony forgetting that he had been hanging out with Hollis prior. So it's all been mirroring the picture of actually what happened. Now when it comes to the obsession of the rain barrel, it's still a little bit vague. What I believe is that either, because it said, how do I open you? I think that might have been a reference to Jordan, Anthony's little brother, finding the prescription pill bottle. How do I open you? It's like a rain barrel in a way. It's a bottle that's very hard to open. But there's also the fact that it shows the neighbor's pool over and over again. It keeps showing the neighbor's yard and referencing the pool. Even in the murder scene, it still references the pool. What I believe happened, the reason it relates death to the pool, is that Jordan got into the meds and then fell in the pool and drowned. And you'd want to do this for your little brother in the first place, but the fact that they said they wanted to clear their conscience at the end, that makes me think that it was also partly their fault. And I believe that the reason it was their fault is because they had also fallen into that trap of not actually dealing with the problem and going into drugs. Now, I believe that the boys were into illegal drugs. And that's why we see them hallucinating and seeing all these weird things, thinking there's apparitions everywhere. And the fact that Anthony knew how to contact these drug dealers and kind of was already in that dark world and was okay with performing these illegal tasks on their journey to expose Dr. Tanner and kind of expose this whole situation. I think they were already in that dark realm, unfortunately. And the reason they didn't help is because they were incapacitated because they were on illegal drugs. Now, when it talks about Jordan, the thing he wanted in life was... because at the end they referenced that this is what Jordan always wanted. And what I believe by that is that Jordan always wanted his parents to get off the drugs and his brother to get off the drugs. What this is it's the message that you need to take care of the problems and not put it off. Because they said it was political at the end. I believe the second narrative not only is to be careful with how you prescribe drugs and don't, overprescribe or carelessly prescribe just to get them out of the way. You really need to take the individual into perspective, but in that as well, I believe the secondary message was that you shouldn't just mindlessly believe a motive. What I mean to say by that is at the beginning, we thought that Hollis was a murderer.
Not to mention, the phantom trick from the beginning had us thinking that this was a ghost story of some sort.
Then we thought Anthony was getting a little suspicious. The way he was framing things, the fact that he didn't want to contact the police, all these things were very suspicious, so then we suspected Anthony. Then they introduced Dr. Tanner, this drug dealer, so then you see, well, maybe the drug dealer's behind all of this and these boys are trying to work together to stop them. And then at the end we find out that Dr. Tanner and them weren't really very important to their plans, as stated by Anthony. So then we're like, okay, we got to circle back what really happened. The point is, you can take any narrative, you can frame it any way, and interpret it in many different ways, and you're not going to get the real truth that way. So it's almost like an I don't think I can use this term, but not true news. And you really just can't take any situation at surface level. You've really got to look into things. You've got to find out the truth. You've got to dig through it. You've got to think. And a lot of people these days, they just, they accept whatever narrative is given to them. They've stopped critical thinking and started to just accept whatever is told to them. And the message in that, the political message in that, is to think for yourself. Find out what really happened. Do your own investigative work if you have to. Don't be lazy about it and just let everybody tell you what's going on. So then you got 12 narratives and don't know what's really going on. You got to find out the truth for yourself sometimes. And sometimes you can get that from sources like that. But you've got to compare sources, you've got to compare the facts, and you've got to find out the real truth. The actual truth. Not their truth, but the overarching truth. Now going back into the actual procedure, they used a drug dealer to tell the story of the dangers of drugs. Because when you look at it from an outside standpoint, what you'll see is that the drug dealer and that doctor are exactly the same. And what I mean by that is that the doctor mindlessly prescribed these drugs that ruined these people's lives. And also, in the same token, of course, it's such a perfect parallel because it both affected the situation, but then the drug dealers carelessly prescribing drugs, basically. So when you really look at it from that perspective, it's all about, taking care of the medicine, because these medicines they can be dangerous. They're not always dangerous, but they can be dangerous if used incorrectly and abused. We've kind of explained why, but we haven't explained what yet. And when I did a little bit, but I really want to get into exactly what happened. What I believe happened is that after the tragedy with Jordan, Anthony and Hollis decided they need to talk about the dangers of drugs. Both sides, the medical and the illegal. And so they came up with this project that was, because they said it was going to change the world and it was going to leave behind a legacy. This is the legacy they wanted to leave behind.
Hollis was unstable and wanted to be a filmmaker, and Anthony promised a grandiose project. That could easily be one of the ways that he drew him in.
And what they were going to do in this is they created a fake scenario. They said it was real the whole time, because it was, but they lied about the details. They said that Hollis was the one that killed the brother. It was because he was on drugs that the brother died, which was true. But it's not that he went insane and actually killed Jordan. What actually happened is they were both incapacitated and the brother drowned.
And the mom was definitely aware of some of the things going on, as we could see her in her pink jacket walking in the background, having already said goodbye to Jordan in the ash spreading scene, after Anthony revealed that Jordan's ashes had been hiding in his home all along.
They decide they want to teach the message in the best way, the most tangible way that they can. They bring in these solution dealers. They start to work through them. They start to show the dangers of them, how dangerous they can actually be, how they're actually, hurting people, hiding people, framing people, all these dangers in that world. But then they also went after the one who went under the pseudonym of Dr. Tanner because they wanted to show the dangers of doctors who were also careless. And again, that second narrative about the not true news is that they wanted to show he's going to frame Hollis, make it look like it's Hollis. Then he actually said he was acting. He was being suspicious on purpose to throw the narrative back the other way. And then he involved the solution dealers to kind of throw that suspicion off to a third party. Then they intentionally got the picture of the two together, not only to show the memory loss aspects, but to also show that there's something else going on and flip the narrative once again. And at the end, when they revealed everything, they turned it on its head a final time. And that's when they actually come out and explain that this was a project to show the dangers of the artificial news and to show the dangers of drug abuse. So it was a twofold project. There really was a tragedy with Jordan, but this wasn't the hunt for Hollis, who he thought killed Jordan, or the hunt for Anthony, who went insane and killed his brother, or these drug dealers that somehow got involved and hurt his brother. It wasn't anything to do with the actual players in the series. It had more so to do with what they represented and the dangers of those worlds and the dangers of those carelessnesses. The saying that he always said, how do I open you, how do I close you? When he said, how do I open you, it was like the pill bottle, it was the seemingly unopenable rain barrel, and then how do I close you? And it showed that symbol. And we found out later that that symbol is actually the teddy bear that they used as a sign of hope. And the reason they saw the sign of hope is because it was Jordan's teddy bear. So they thought at least his death will mean something now, because out of this tragedy, we'll be able to show other people the dangers of it and save lives. How do I close this all out? How do I get closure? How do we make this all mean something and move on? So that's why the teddy bear symbol was how do I close you, and the rain barrel was how to open you. It was how do I open you because that's what started it all. And then how do I close it all out? The whole tragedy with Jordan? By sharing the message and making his life mean something. Two very good friends who did some bad things and had a tragedy happen decided to take the tragedy and do something good with it. And that's a message we could all use. It might not always be to this extent, and it might not always be the best thing to do, but in every negative situation, there is a positive. You can do good with anything you have, no matter how bad a situation you're in, no matter what tragedy you've went through, you can turn that into something positive to help others. And I believe that's the most important message here. And I probably droned on way too long, and that's my take on it. What is your take? I absolutely want to know what you think Hiding My Home meant and what the story actually was. If you think I'm right, hey, let me know that as well. Put all of your thoughts about this series in the comments below, and I will read every single one, and I will most likely interact. I really want to know what you all think about this. I love this series. If you haven't checked it out already, the link's in the description. They have other projects coming up, which are very, very exciting. They have, well, if you want to find out about those projects, let me go ahead and plug that as well. And that would be the interview I did with the two. So make sure you check that out as well. I will see you all later. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. This has been Dr. Reeds. And, as I always say, keep your eyes wide open and never stop reading. See you guys.
Hey, thank you all for watching. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank my patrons. Thank you all so much for everything you do to support what I do. Vexus, CNK114, Investigator Zeus, Dobby's Music, Jerry Mullins, and Phantasm7. Thank you all again for keeping this channel and my other projects going.